I'm very excited to introduce you to our next guest. I have the pleasure of working with Sheriff David Clarke with America First. David Clarke he's really America's sheriff. He's a former American law enforcement official who was the sheriff of Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. He was appointed sheriff by Governor Scott McCallum and later elected that same year to his 4-year term. He was reelected in November 2006. Although he was registered and elected as a Democrat in a heavily Democrat county, David Clarke supports our president, Donald Trump. He fights every day to keep America first, and he's a great American. It's my privilege to have him on our show this morning. Good morning, David.
Morning, Martha. Wonderful introduction. Just one change. Was not a registered Democrat. I ran as a Democrat. Joined the party.
Ran as a Democrat. My apologies. Forgive me. Yes, though. Thank you for correcting that. And thank you so much for coming on the show. You know, every time I see Sheriff Clarke, people from all over can't wait to talk to you, to shake your hand, to thank you, to get a picture with you. And it's because you're fearless and you speak truth and you fight hard. And so I wanted to have you on the show because I wanted to talk. Can you tell our listeners about the New York Times recent editorial board hire, Sarah Jiang, and, you know, the controversy that happened there?
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting. I wonder who did the background on her from the New York Times. And it's the do as I say, not as I do arrogance of the New York Times and their editorial board, where other people, fine people, have said some things that, you know, maybe a little salty, whatever, and have either had to resign or been fired from either conservative organizations or even from the administration. There was a woman recently from the Health and Human Services who was, you know, basically resigned, but she was fired really for some anti-Muslim statements that she had made on Twitter some time ago and on her website. And, you know, the administration threw her overboard. Another guy, Carl Higbee,
right,
who was thrown overboard by the administration. I'm not blaming the administration. What I'm saying is our side, means the conservative side, is going to have to start standing up to this nonsense. You know, the left gets away with it. Martha, I still want to know why Joy Reid is still employed by MSNBC after her very distasteful rhetoric and rants, anti-homophobic, that she lied about. She even lied about it having happened, or her account was hacked, which turned out not to be true. The FBI investigated. I want to know why the FBI didn't charge her with obstruction of justice for making that false complaint.
Right, and you know, the rhetoric is so horrific now out there. I mean, it's gone to a point where, you know, there's no civility, and you've got a bias in mainstream media, and you know, there seems to be no consequences.
You know what leads to this? I think a lot of this animosity that exists between, especially in Washington D.C., we're talking about, but nationally, between the left and the right is the growth of government. There's so much at stake now. There's so much political power, so much money to be had. And as government has grown to the size that it has, people are willing to fight to the death for it.
That's right.
To secure it and to maintain it. But I don't know, maybe you didn't get that memo going back to that New York Times situation. I guess it's okay to hate on white folks. It's just not okay to hate on anybody else. And I'm being facetious.
Right, of course you're being facetious. No, I think that, you know, and I was hoping, can you be specific about what was, you know, tell our listeners what was said, or do you just not even want to go there?
Well, you know, she basically, you know, I don't want to get too much and give it too much fanfare, but
of course,
basically said she enjoyed hating on old white men, and she, most of her rants, I should say, were directed at white people and white males. And she had a free-for-all in terms of her hate and disgust and some very distasteful stuff. But at the same time, you know, in this day and age, most employers, that's the first place they're going to go and doing a background check on you is your social media.
That's exactly right.
And I'm sure they saw this. But you know what? They said, who cares? You were hating on white folks. I guess that's okay with us. Come on and join us here at the New York Times editorial board. But it shows the lack of character, I think, and the lack of integrity on the part of the New York Times editorial board to not only to have hired her, but now that they found this out, even if they want to claim they didn't know about it, which I know they did.
Right.
that they don't ask her to resign or fire her. It's just typical of the what I like to call the liberal lying mainstream media.
Well, it's this double standard. It has to come to an end. Anyone who expresses hateful and offensive rhetoric should receive the same consequences, regardless of political affiliation, race, or creed. It's we've gotten to a point now where this double standard has to come to an end. Don't you agree?
Oh, without a doubt. But the only way, Martha, it's going to come to an end is when, like I said, when people on our side. There's a line. There's a very bright line as to what you could say and what you can do in society. I think it's a very bright line. Sometimes people will toe that line and get a little closer, and then sometimes people will go over it. I think when you go over it, something needs to be done. But at the same time, the left is okay with hanging on to people like Joy Reid, like this woman at the New York Times editorial board. But then, people on the right, will drop you like a hot potato if they find out that you said something or did something along the same lines. And I'm not saying they shouldn't, but the left knows in doing that, hey, we can get away with this. I mean, this clown over at CNN, Andy Kaczynski, he spends full time. They hired him as he's a hired gun. He's a political hack. And all he does is take people on the right and go through their background, go through their social media, find something they said. It could be 15 years ago. And he brings it to light, and they put pressure on, and he goes after conservatives. So then he'll go after the organization or whoever the employer is, and then CNN will start to put some pressure on. But then again, like I said, these corporations and these companies can do what they want. They can fire and hire whoever they want, but at the same time, I don't know. Let's not even use the word fair, because what I say about the word fair is that's where cattle, sheep, and hogs and chickens are on display. Right. But at the same time, if they know they can get away with it, they'll continue to go after our side and our people, and then they get off scot-free.
Right, and we see that, and we're seeing that time and time again. And what you brought up is so important for our listeners to hear, because what do you recommend? What can people do? So there are so many Americans that feel like, like all these examples that you just went through, like the mainstream media really has conservatives, just completely thrown under the bus, run over, and held accountable at such a higher level than liberals in terms of the freedom of speech and what they say. And what do you recommend that people do? Because right now there are cases where a conservative will say something, and then the investors, the donors, the backers, the sponsors will be harassed and harangued until there's a public apology of some kind, or the individual is let go. I mean, you've seen it happen time and time again. What do you recommend that people do to express their frustration when there is this double standard and nothing's done about it?
The frustration part, I understand that, but I always like to remind people, at least I tell myself that all the time, because I'm human, I get frustrated. It's a human emotion, but it's of little use. What I remind people is you got to fight back. When you see these companies, in other words, when the left goes after some corporation that's an advertiser on some conservative, with some conservative corporation like Chick-fil-A, and they're not a conservative corporation, but the guy who owns that is an advocate for his religious beliefs, then what people can do is when the left calls for a boycott, get up, find your nearest Chick-fil-A, go in there and spend some money.
That's right.
That's what you do. You things like that are effective. And so you support these corporations that are under siege like this, and then after a while, I think they'll develop a backbone. I really do, because that's what has to happen here. When I say fight back, these corporations have to develop a backbone and look people in the stare these people on the left down and say, look, get out of here. We don't involve ourselves in politics. We're a business. We're here to make money. We're here to make a profit. And we're going to continue to do that. That helps our bottom line to advertise on, Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity or whoever, and we're going to continue to do it. But right now, everybody runs scared, and that's the problem, is everybody runs scared. And at some point, you have to take a stand. You have to look these people in the eye. You got to stare them down, let them know, okay, you're looking for a fight. you barked up the wrong tree here, pal.
Well, I think we might have a question. Was that a question? Somebody called in with a question? Okay. So somebody just texted me and said, Sheriff Clarke is absolutely correct. I'm disappointed in the corporations that cave when they receive, boycott threats. They immediately cave instead of supporting and standing true. They cave, and they'll withdraw their support, they'll withdraw their sponsorships, they'll withdraw their endorsements, and they cave immediately at the instant a threat is given to boycott their product or boycott their company. And I guess that was just a comment that was just texted to me.
Yeah, and that's why I said, that would help for people when they see that so-and-so is under siege, some corporation. Get out there, buy their products, go to their store and make purchases, because what will happen is that's one of the things that they monitor. And they'll look and they'll see that and they'll say, you know what, this is not affecting our bottom line. We need to stand strong on this, because that place that we advertise helps our bottom line. We're a business. We keep the business separate from the politics, because actually when they cave like that, they're engaging in the politics that they say they don't want to be involved in.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And we see that time and time again. Thank you so much, Sheriff Clarke, for everything you do. How can our listeners get in touch with you if they want to keep in touch with you and they want to support what you do?
Best thing to do right now is follow me on Twitter. It's @SheriffClarke. They can keep up there with what's going on, and I'm undergoing some changes with my website, so that's under construction right now. But and then my book, Cop Under Fire, I talk about a lot of these issues. That's available on Amazon. Cop Under Fire. That's the best way for people to keep up with me. That's great. And
your book is Cop Under Fire. It's by Sheriff David Clarke, and it talks about your experiences. And I'm told that you might have another one coming out. Is that just rumor?
No, that's still in the works. It's
Great.
Not finalized yet, but I'm working on it. But the subtitle is Beyond the Hashtags of Race, Crime, and Politics for a Better America. And that's why I said people find it interesting on some of these social issues that we're talking about.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sheriff Clarke. We hope to have you on the show soon.
Thanks a lot, Martha.
Thank you.